Welcome to the Private Practice Startup Podcast, where we help ambitious private practitioners across the globe to brand themselves and grow their dream practices. We chat with successful private practitioners, business coaches, and marketing experts, bringing you tons of practice building ninja tips. Visit privatepracticestartup.com for awesome resources, attorney-approved private practice paperwork, and our signature marketing e-course. Here are your co-hosts, Dr. Kate Campbell and Katie Lemieux.
Hey there, Startup Nation. Welcome back to another episode of the Private Practice Startup Podcast. Before we hopped on, we were just talking about, oh my gosh, we're over 200 episodes. That is crazy. We've been doing this for over 4 years now, which is awesome and exciting. And especially with our guest today, because she built her practice utilizing a lot of these podcasts. So we're going to be diving into that. But before we do that, we hope you guys joined us last week as we invited Sean Davis back. And Sean is in California. He owns the Davis Counseling Group, I think it's what it's called, but he actually has 2 locations. Sean was one of our coaches, and he was able to expand his location, and that was really awesome. But he comes back and he talks to us and you guys on how to get paid to travel. So if you're thinking about expanding into different areas and you're really wanting to add travel to what it is that you do, you're definitely going to want to don't want to miss that podcast for sure. Before we do dive into today's topic, if you are a new person here, we are welcoming you with our virtual open arms and say, welcome to Startup Nation family. We are so excited you are here. And we have a gift for you. And that is our A to Z cheat sheet, the essentials for building and growing your dream practice. And if you head over to privatepracticestartup.com, head on over to the resources tab. There you will see it. And it comes with 5 days of practice building emails, all for free to support you in your process. So this guest, we're super excited to invite her, and her name is Chrissy Barlahan. She's a marriage and family therapist from Las Vegas. And a little bit about Chrissy: she managed to finish graduate school having moved far away from family and friends, having a very difficult pregnancy, and birthing an 8-pound, as she says, wild child. She's built a full private practice, 20 plus clients in about only 5 months, guys. That's extraordinary. She spends her days chasing her sweet son, watching guilty pleasure TV with her husband, and taking out her daily stress and kickboxing. And she's going to be sharing, if I can do it, you can do it too. 4 tips from an intern level clinician on really how to build a private practice. Welcome, Chrissy.
Thank you. So excited to be here.
We are so excited. And before we did hit record, you were saying like, oh, well, I haven't done much. You built a practice in like less than 5 months, having a difficult pregnancy, being an intern. That is really, really extraordinary. So
thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And what's also funny, Kate and I, like we have this like little conversation. We probably should have a list of like where people join us from a podcast. And you are our first garage podcast.
Yes. Well, glad to be the first.
And that's probably because we are still in the midst of the stay-at-home orders during the COVID crisis, and everybody's just trying to do the best they can, hiding out wherever they can in their home.
Yes, absolutely.
So we would love to hear a little bit about your story and journey, what made you jump into private practice as an intern, and we'd love to understand, how was that building a practice as an intern and having a difficult pregnancy? Share with us about that.
Absolutely. So I always knew I wanted private practice. Before I started in the field of marriage and family therapy, I actually worked as a behavioral therapist for kids with autism for years and years and years. And I always worked in agencies. And so I've had good ones and I've had bad ones. And I kind of knew in my experience that I didn't want to do agency life again. It was really like a burnout kind of job. And I knew I didn't want my career moving forward to be that. And so I always knew that private practice was going to be the route for me. So, during my pregnancy, oh my gosh, it was so awful. I was one of those ones that were always sick. People would say like, okay, it gets better like the third trimester. It never got better. I was sick the whole time. Throwing up was like a normal thing. It would be like, okay, just walking my dog and have to throw up in the street. Like it was awful. It was awful. Yes, it was really rough. And so, seeing clients too, and feeling so sick, sometimes it'd be like, okay, like, I'm so sorry, I have to run to the restroom. And so that was really difficult, just feeling really tired and always feeling so sick, and still at the same time feeling this fire and motivation to do private practice at the same time. And so it was weird having like those conflicting thoughts and feelings of like, oh my gosh, I can't do anything, and I also want to do everything.
Wow.
So yeah, it was really challenging for sure.
Talk about determination.
Yes. Oh my gosh. It was wild. And at the time we were living in Washington. Home for us is Southern California. And so we had moved to Washington in hopes of having a more affordable kind of lifestyle. And I wasn't planning on being pregnant at the time that we moved. And so when we did, not having friends or family around while having a baby was incredibly difficult. It was like raining all the time. I would see no one. And it was really challenging. And so we decided that Washington was not for us. And we decided to move to Vegas, where my parents live, so we could have more help. So we were in Washington. I was about to start private practice. I was already set to go. And then we were like, we can't do this anymore. Like, this is just too rough. And so we moved to Vegas to start a new life, start private practice, and having a baby.
Wow.
And so that was just so wild. And then we kind of assumed like, okay, my husband has a pretty solid type of job. And we figured, okay, if we move, he should have no problem finding another one. So we kind of moved before he had found another job. And so when we moved to Vegas, we moved both not having jobs. And so when we got there, it proved that it was a lot more difficult for him to find a job than we thought. And so we were now in a situation where I was going to have to be the breadwinner and doing private practice. And so there was like this added pressure of like, oh my gosh, like I have to do private practice and it has to be successful. And we have a baby. It was so crazy. It was such a crazy time in our life. I originally thought like, oh, like I'm just going to sit back and relax. And if clients come or don't come, like that's okay. Like my husband's working, no big deal. Now it was like, uh-oh, like the clients better come, and they better come now because, I need to be able to support my family. So that was really a difficult transition.
Now, where were you in your pregnancy and postpartum journey when you moved to Las Vegas?
So I had my son by that point.
Okay. Your son was born, and how old was your son?
So we were in Washington for almost a year. So he was born September 2018. So we had moved, and then he was about almost a little less than one, maybe like 8 months, 8 or 9 months. Still fairly young. So definitely still like recovering, figuring out life with a baby and what is this? What is going on?
And all the way up in Washington and not having a community of support or your family or friends and really navigating that by yourself. How was your postpartum experience? Was it difficult like your pregnancy, or was that a little bit smoother?
It was actually very difficult. I didn't anticipate having like postpartum depression or anything like that. And but I did like research on it, like, okay, like look for this if you get it, right? And so as things were kind of going on, I was like, well, I don't have postpartum depression, but something is happening to me. Like something is not right. And I found out that I had postpartum anxiety, which I had no idea was a thing. But I'm like, why can't I sleep at night? Like I'm terrified a robber is going to come in the house and like take my baby, or like why, like I can't, I felt like I was always on. Like I felt like I couldn't have a moment of not worrying or not feeling like very keyed up was almost like the feeling. And so I didn't even know that was a thing until I started listening to another podcast in the night of like 3 a.m. breastfeeding. But it talked about like different people's postpartum experiences. And when they said postpartum anxiety, I was like, oh my gosh, like that is the thing I have. So yeah, that was also a very interesting experience. Feeling like, gosh, so anxious all the time. And it was raining it was really rough. It was a really rough time in my life for sure.
It sounds like it. And did you wait until you went to Vegas to start your practice, or did you start building your practice in the middle of that really dark, difficult time during postpartum when you were in Washington?
So I started all the prep for building my practice. So I was doing like all my business license, finding a space, like all that kind of meat that goes into building a practice. All of that I was doing in Washington. So I was like building my website at like 12 a.m. to 2 a.m., like working on it and researching, and, you know, all of that stuff was going on like when my son was asleep. And so that's where kind of the meat kind of happened. And then it was kind of nice because that was already done. And then I can just kind of take that with me to Vegas and kind of step into the acquiring clients and finding a space and things like that.
It's amazing to hear your journey, because on one hand, you went through such dark times, and I know what it's like to go through postpartum depression and anxiety because I went through that with my first son, and it's awful. Mm-hmm. It's really hard. So on one hand, you're isolated, it's raining all the time, and you're in your own like rainy, stormy season of your life, even though it's a beautiful thing to have your baby. Mm-hmm. It's very difficult. So on that one hand, things were really a major struggle for you. And on the other hand, here you had this vision of knowing you wanted to build your practice and being able to push through and keep your eye on that dream, to pursue the dream in the midst of this stormy season of your life. How did you manage to do that?
I think it was the one thing that I was holding on to. I think it was like the one thing that it was like I was excited about. Like, you know, and when we were living in Washington, my husband would go to work and I was all day at home with the baby, like by myself. I can't go outside because it's pouring rain. And those first few months are really monotonous. It's very like, okay, you feed your baby, he goes to sleep, and then he wakes up, and then it's a very kind of this monotonous routine. So I think that was the only thing I held on, is like this is very exciting. This is something that's mine. This is something that I'm really hopeful for. And so it was actually fairly easy to be motivated about it, because I think it was driving my day to day.
It's just, I really love listening to your story, and you're extremely driven. And, you know, it's not that you just had, you know, a very difficult pregnancy. You guys moved, changed jobs, didn't have jobs, and built a business. Like, that's crazy. That's a lot going on. And
it was so crazy.
It is crazy. And I hope that like when you hear this back, like you realize how much you truly have accomplished, because I know for me, like if I am not feeling well, it is like hard to do anything else. I mean, the effort, the energy it takes, so man, wow, my hat is off to you.
Thank you.
So you started building your business while you were pregnant. You were in Washington still, and you would stay up, you said, and research and try to figure out websites, and you were doing all of that. So you had your business, like the online presence set up before you moved to Vegas. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of just had like the basic kind of building blocks, right? Like business plan. I had my website kind of laid out how I wanted it. Like it wasn't live or anything yet. I had like my whole kind of copy down for my Psychology Today profile, like, and took the picture for it. And like, I kind of just mapped out like what this was going to look like, how this was going to be. There's actually like a lot of small things I didn't realize go into it. Like getting a business phone number and like setting that up, and getting like a business email and setting that up, and all of those little things that kind of go into it that you don't think about, and like business cards. And so all of that was kind of what I was focusing on and setting up. And so when I talk about like, you know, this feeling of like, this is the meat of it, is like everything was prepped and prepared.
That's awesome.
I just needed the clients.
So we just wanted to take a quick break for our sponsor. Okay, guys, it's sponsor time. You know what? Instead of reading a script about Gusto's payroll and benefits, we wanted to tell you what small business owners say, the people who use Gusto every day. Here's what one small business owner says. With Gusto, I think of payroll as a 30-second job. The website is so friendly and a joy to use. Friendly payroll? You don't hear that every day. And how about Amy from Utah? Amy says, I love Gusto so much. It's so painless. It's like going to the spa, and we have great options and rates, even though we're a super small team. Like going to the spa? Wow. And here's what Mneet says about Gusto's support team. Whenever something comes up, I reach out and literally 24 hours later, they tell us what to do or assure us that we've already handled it. Smart technology and friendly humans, that's super cool. Honestly, the list goes on, and right now our listeners get 3 months free when they go to gusto.com/PPS. Yep, 3 months of payroll, benefits, administration, and more, totally free. Again, that's gusto.com/PPS.
When it comes to keeping your practice organized, you want software that's not only simple, but the best. We recommend TherapyNotes. Their platform lets you manage notes, claims, scheduling, and they have a new awesome telehealth platform for your online counseling sessions. They offer amazing unlimited phone support and email support, so when you have a question, they are there to help. To get started with the practice management software trusted by over 60,000 professionals, go to therapynotes.com and start a free trial today. Enter promo code PPS, as in Private Practice Startup, and they will give you 2 months to try for free. Go to therapynotes.com.
So what else did you do? So now you had the preparation, really kind of like the outline of your business. It was thriving online. You get to Vegas. Now what?
So I think my first feat was finding a supervisor, because as a state level intern, you need to have someone oversee your work. And so I was trying to find like the right fit, someone that I felt like had a similar like kind of demeanor as me, or similar style in the terms of how I work. And so that took some time. And the other piece was finding a space for me to work. And I was kind of going back and forth, like, do I buy my own space and, decorate it the way I want? Or do I kind of find someone that kind of has already set up and I sublease? And so I ended up finding an amazing, amazing space for an amazing, amazing price with someone just through like a Facebook group. A lot of times, like different states will have Facebook groups for the therapists of that state. And so I was really, really lucky and found a super cute space for a really, really good price. So I had to do those things. And then, in the process of getting licensed with the state, every state is really different. Washington is really, really easy. You kind of just send in your paperwork, and then a couple weeks later, like they'll send like you're licensed. Nevada is very, 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 very different. It was a very long process. They're a little bit more unorganized. They're a little bit more organized than they used to be, but the process for that was maybe like a month or longer. Like it was a really long time before I got licensed. And just like, I'm not sure why, like just the processing of their paperwork took a very long time, or processing of their fingerprints, something, but it took a long time. So there was a long time of waiting and anxiousness and anxiety of like, oh my gosh, like, where no one's making any money. Like, what's happening? Am I going to get clients? Like, so many sleepless nights of wondering, like, can I even do this? Like, is this really going to happen? Like, are clients going to come through the door? Like, it was a very long period of waiting.
And you've talked about, it's good to hear you talk about some of the mindset issues and some of the questions and the doubt that popped in, because there are so many unknowns when you're starting a business, especially when you're moving and in the midst of all of these changes happening simultaneously. And you've talked about some of the business basics that you had set up. One of the biggest areas that we hear therapists struggling so much with in private practice is the marketing aspect. Being that you've filled your practice in 5 months, tell us how you learned to do that.
So some of that is marketing, and I don't know if some of that is also just like really good luck at the same time. a lot of my clients came from Psychology Today, and I credit that in having a very good Psychology Today profile. And I'll talk a little bit about that later about, Laura Long's thing, how she really set the stage for my Psychology Today profile. So I feel like a lot of my ideal clients came from that. Other clients came from connections that I would make kind of in the city. So the gal that I was renting a space from, she was full in her practice. So she would often give me a lot of her referrals, which was super nice. I would get a lot of referrals actually from my supervisor. And that was great too. Also, we were fairly involved in our church, and so I'd get a lot of referrals that way. I think it was more connecting in the community versus kind of anything online or electronically other than Psychology Today. But I would go to different trainings and I would connect with people through that. I also grew up in Las Vegas, through high school. And so I knew a lot of people already. So also that was just having connections. I think that was my biggest marketing aspect, was just being pretty well connected in the community.
Nice. And, one of the things that Kate and I constantly talk about when it comes to marketing, and it sounds like, being a connector and connections for you, Chrissy, is really your superpower. And I love that you kind of, went that route, because the reality is that all marketing works. It doesn't work for everybody, right? And there's some standards and really specific things we all need, like a high converting website and stuff like that. But, we have to find what marketing resonates with us and our natural talents. So I love that you built your business on that specifically. And again, I'm just curious, how did you know what to do or what to say? What did you do?
So I have really, really fancy business cards. And I mean, that sounds really simple, but I give my business cards to people, and there is not one time that I haven't gotten a compliment. Oh my gosh, your business cards are so nice. And so I would hand those out at events that I would go to. I would go to a lot of trainings just because as an intern, you want to get you're hungry for knowledge, right? So I was so hungry for it. And I would just try and find all the trainings that I could, and people that I would meet, I would just give my business card to, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, this is really nice. And so that was one way. I would try to meet other therapists that I knew to hang out or go for coffee or something like that, and get referrals that way. Another, on the Facebook groups, that is a really amazing resource for referrals, because a lot of people are hey, looking to find this kind of therapist for this client, and then you can just respond. So that was really good. And then I think really once I got the clients in the door, they became my referrals. That was the key. Because I think, they felt like they were being helped, or they were being able to work through different things. And so they were like, oh my gosh, my sister has to come to you, or this person has to come to you. And so I would end up seeing a lot of family members of clients that I already had. And that really became later my greatest source of referral.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So you talk about the community marketing that you've been doing just by building relationships with people. Mm-hmm. And like Katie was saying, that's one of your superpowers and natural strengths, natural talent, which is great. And then just being an excellent therapist and really caring about people and doing your best work. Your clients become raving fans, and they become your best marketers, and they do it for free, which is amazing.
Yes. Yes.
One of the things that you were sharing with us before we hit the record button was that you actually haven't had to do any marketing since the pandemic has happened, because you have really great retention rates and your clients enjoy working with you and they've been staying with you. And I'm just curious about that piece. What seems to be effective in your approach with clients and the rapport that you build with them that keeps them coming back for more?
I think, honestly, it's my client niche. So my ideal clients are couples in crisis. And so often their crisis isn't short-lived, right? And so kind of just on the nature of like, it's this continuous thing that we're having to work through and work on. I also see a lot of clients with affair recovery, and that's also not a short-lived thing. It's not like, you know, kind of like, okay, anxiety or depression, and you work on that for a little bit and it starts to improve. It's kind of like we're always working on this dynamic of building trust back in the relationship, or always working on, you know, helping clients get out of their cycle. And so I think just the nature of the type of clients that I see tend to be a little bit more like long-standing, and people are really like faithful to their therapist because they feel like, man, like I don't want to start over, you know? And so I feel like, especially if we're really kind of right in the middle of like people in their crisis, they want to be able to see that therapist often. And so I think that's been kind of the benefit of the type of clients I see. I do see other type of clients, like for anxiety, depression, or life changes and transition. I think, you know, I chalk it up to my clients and their ability to be really loyal to their therapist. I don't know if it's necessarily something I'm doing, but I know for me, like if I have a therapist, like that's my therapist, you know? And so I think, yeah, just feeling like my thing for clients is always, I want them to leave feeling better than when they walked in. And if I can help them get some clarity around something they've been struggling with, or just help them to feel more hopeful even, or positive than when they came in, then I feel like I'm doing something right.
And I also get that you just really bring yourself to the room. Like you have a presence about you. Like I sense your personality. Like you just show up as who you are. And we talk about how important that is just that authentic connection. And, you know, there's many therapists that work with couples, but we all work very differently. And when we allow ourselves to be our own creative expression in the room, like that's what, you know, clients are connected to. I had a couple just call me. I think I worked with them like 2-3 years ago. And she's like, I just remembered you. Like, I only saw them a few times. And she's like, I just remember your energy. There's just something about your energy. You know what I mean? But that's what our clients, you know, remember is when we can be our authentic self. Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Chrissy, what advice would you have for someone who's like on the verge of starting or is just starting, they're kind of freaking out?
Okay. So first, just do things like one step at a time, because everything can feel really overwhelming. I remember when I started listening to your podcast, when I was this was just a dream or just a thought, right? I was like, oh my gosh, like I didn't know I had something to worry about. Like I thought, like, I think Katie, you've described this before where it's like, I thought I was just going to sit down and the clients were going to come. And like, I was so naive, and I honestly thought that too. And so when I started listening to your podcast and you were talking about business plans and like SEO, I was like, I don't even know what that is. Like, does she mean CEO? Like, what is that? Like, I don't even know. Like copy, like she's making copies. Like, I don't know. I had no idea. I had zero idea of what this would entail. And so when I was starting to listen, I was as excited as I was panicked, because I was like, oh my gosh, like I had no idea that this was going to take so much more than what I thought. But thankfully you guys, you know, you provided all of the tools and all of the things to kind of help ease my mind. But so my first bit of advice would be just to take things one step at a time, to like do something and do it well, and to do it to your idea of like satisfaction. So like I rewrote my Psychology Today copy like 3 or 4 times, like just trying to get it right, trying to get the right feel for it. Or my website, oh my gosh, that thing took months. And like, but just feeling like this is what I want to say, and this is what I want to put out in the world. So just, again, one thing at a time and feeling solid about it. My other bit of advice would be not to freak out. I think there are so many episodes where you guys talk about like the scarcity mindset, which I also had no idea was a thing until I heard about it. But I was like, oh yeah, this is what's happening to me. Like I would have visions of like me in a room alone with no clients and just paying rent every month with no clients. But they come, and they come slow, but they come. And I think that is like the feeling, you know, of like, okay, like that the clients will come, the clients will come, the clients will come, the clients will come. I promise. I think another advice I would say is like, I would struggle fighting this feeling that I wasn't worth my rate. This idea that like no way people are going to pay me this much to like talk to them. Like I'm just an intern. Like, so I think that is something I would say too, is like, know your worth and know that what you're asking people to pay is worth it. I've made the mistake in the beginning. I would say like, gosh, like my first couple clients that would call, they'd be like, okay, like what's your rate? And I'd be like, oh, it's this much. But I offer sliding scale if you need it. Like,
been there, done that.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And so I had to learn, just like, you know, everybody, that, you know, that clients will pay what you're asking them to pay. Right. And if not, I would save like 3 or 4 spots for pro bono or sliding scale. And like once those were filled, they were filled. But it definitely took time to wrap my brain around the idea that I am worth this rate.
That's awesome.
For sure. Yeah.
You know, what's amazing to me is just like really listening to your story. And I know that, you know, with Kate and I, we built our practices from the ground up, and we didn't have the resources that are available to you guys today. But the reality is the resources can be there. And if you're not coachable and willing to like listen and take action from really kind of like the collective of what works, it's still not going to work. You know what I mean? Right. And so one thing that I find about business is sometimes it's super counterintuitive, you know, and to let go of our own belief system about how things would work or whatever can be really difficult. So I just really enjoyed listening to your journey. 2 more questions. One is, do you have a favorite podcast of ours? And what is it that you want people to take away from your message today?
Okay. So I don't even know if I have a favorite. I have like so many that have like totally helped me. All the ones that you and Kate do on like branding and marketing, those like I would eat them up. Laura Long's episode 52 and 53, The Secrets of a Badass Directory Profile, like shaped by Psychology Today. Totally are amazing. I liked Melody Wilding's Outsmarting Imposter Syndrome, episode 107. I had no idea what that even was. And then when she talked about it, it was like, oh, that's
a thing.
Yeah. And so that was so helpful. Episode 109, Elizabeth Bonet, her Hypnotize Me. Mm-hmm. She literally puts me to sleep every night. I was already listening to her cool. Before you guys brought her on, so I was more than excited. She talks about like how she kind of attracts the clients that she wants to work with, and I found that that's actually true in my practice too. So that was a cool thing. I loved the Therapy by Design, episode 123 with Hillary Holmes. That was just like a fun episode, thinking about like just dreaming about how I want to create space for people. So that was awesome. I liked episode 126, Top 3 Fears Holding You Back with Jane Carter. That was amazing. I think there's so much fear, and she really spoke to all of that. Scarcity Proof Your Practice, episode 128, that was amazing. Episode 137, Using Authenticity as a Tool to Grow Your Practice, that one was good too. And I love all the up close and personal episodes and that I love those secretly also because they were kind of my idea.
Kind of your idea? What do you mean?
Yes, because I was the one that wrote to you on Facebook to do those episodes.
Oh yeah?
Yes, you had asked in like the, what kind of episodes do you want to see? And I was like, you guys need to like pull back the curtain and tell us like about, more deep and personal. And from that, I think really birthed this idea.
Very cool.
Someone wrote back and they were like, this is happening. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I'm so glad. And so
I love it.
I love all of those.
Well, you'll be excited to know that we're going to actually do another up close and personal. So we're going to bring on five new guests.
Gosh. I love it.
Yeah, it was a ton of fun for us too. And we really loved everyone's questions. And it was just, it's just nice to kind of take a different shift. So it's funny because Kate and I put ourselves on there, but we didn't get voted. Maybe we'll get voted this time. Maybe we won't.
I was just thinking maybe we should have Chrissy actually interview us and flip the script.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I would love it. I would love it.
Oh my God. Let's do that.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Cool.
Yes.
You're up. So Chrissy, what do you want therapists to take away from your message today?
Just that there's this moment, there's this feeling when this is like an idea in your head of like, you can't even picture yourself there. Like you can't even picture yourself doing it. Like I'm going to have clients every day coming into my office and paying me that much money. And I think my big takeaway would be like, it is going to happen. Like you will be there and it will happen and it will actually be normal. Like there was this point where I was like, man, like this is a normal every day. Like clients pay me this much money, clients coming into my office, and just remembering that there was a time that I didn't think it was going to be. And so just kind of feeling like, this will happen for you if you want it to, and if you're willing to put in the work.
Awesome. Well, we are so grateful that you reached out to us to be on this podcast.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome so much. Your story is just beautiful. And I really hope that it becomes someone else's top 10 podcast that they listen to, because it's really a source of hope and inspiration. Your driven spirit. It's amazing. And I know that you talked about some of your favorite podcasts, so we'll go ahead and list that in the show notes. And I know you're talking about your awesome business cards, and you have a link for that, which we'll put in our show notes as well. And you utilize Boo, right?
Yes, they're so good.
Awesome. So we'll put that as a resource for Startup Nation. So I've really enjoyed this podcast. This has been a joy for us and a fun time. And we hope that you guys join us next week as we talk to Cindy Norton, who was also an intern when she started private practice. And she's going to be talking to you guys about how to book new ideal clients without ever answering the phone. So I'm really excited to share this with you guys. And before we go,
and Startup Nation, if you guys are enjoying this podcast as much as we are, definitely subscribe, rate, and review the show. We always love getting feedback from you to know which episodes you're enjoying. And also, if you have an idea for a topic that we haven't talked about yet, we really want to create the content that's going to be speaking to you and the messages that you really need to hear as you are really building and growing your dream private practice. So we're here to support you along that journey.
And, building a practice isn't always easy. I know Chrissy, it sounds like she just jumped in and was able to do it and navigate, but I know that it took a lot of work. It took a lot of research and studying. And as you heard her say, rewriting the profile 4 times and things like that. And you guys know that Kate and I are super passionate about helping therapists really, work with the clients they love and, live their dream lifestyle. So don't forget, we have our e-course and coaching program, which we launch several times a year, but our e-course is available anytime. So you guys can start today, or if you wake up at, 2 a.m. with some inspiration and you're ready to go, you can just head over to privatepracticestartup.com and just look for the coaching tab or e-course tab. Kate,
it's under e-course and coaching. Yes. Our private practice marketing e-course. Exactly.
Yes. And I'll go ahead and put that in the show notes for you guys as well. So Startup Nation, as always, thanks for allowing us to inspire you from startup to mastery. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for joining us on The Private Practice Startup. Visit theprivatepracticestartup.com for awesome resources, free trainings, attorney-approved private practice paperwork, and so much more.